Before everything began to unravel, Bob had been living a life that seemed perfect from the outside. He had a stable career, a loving family, and the comfort that came with being settled in his mid-30s. Each day followed a predictable pattern: work, home, family time, and the occasional date night with his wife Sharon. It felt like they had found the formula for balancing responsibilities and squeezing out moments of happiness. At least that's what he believed. There were no glaring signs, no indicators that something was festering beneath the surface, something that could shatter the foundation he thought was rock solid. He should have known better. Bob and Sharon were not immune to the slow erosion that creeps into long-term relationships when neglect takes root. Bob had thrown himself into a massive project at work, one that promised to elevate his career and ensure their financial security for years to come. Late nights at the office and early mornings became routine, and he didn't give much thought to the growing distance between him and his wife. In his mind, this was just a temporary phase, a necessary sacrifice that would pay off in the end. What he failed to see was how the little things, missed dinners, forgotten conversations, and unspoken loneliness, were quietly eroding the bond they had built over the years. It was Thursday, and Bob found himself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a bottle of Miller Lite. He had only grabbed a six-pack, not enough to get drunk, just something to help him steady his nerves. He knew he needed a clear head for the conversation that was fast approaching. Upstairs, he could hear the sound of Sharon's music fading, a sign that she was nearly finished getting ready. Normally, Thursday nights were her time with friends, giving Bob the opportunity to stay late at work and finish up his weekly tasks. It had seemed like the perfect arrangement. Bob got a handle on his workload, Sharon had time to relax with her friends, and his parents looked after their daughter, Casey. But as he sat there now, the very routine that once seemed ideal had become a veil, hiding the deeper cracks in his marriage. His mind drifted back to his lunch with Vicky earlier that week, a conversation that had upended his entire reality. Tuesday. I need to get out of the office more, Bob thought, or at least see if they would deliver these amazing sandwiches. He had grabbed a table to watch the door and soon saw a familiar face walk in. She looked around and he waved. She spotted him and walked over. At 31, Vicky was the oldest of Sharon's friends and his favorite. She was also the only one married. She had a way of putting everyone at ease without being a pushover. He had to admit she was attractive too. Dark, wavy hair, fair skin, and great legs. No noticeable curves, but her face was stunning. Her husband Ron adored her, and she still got plenty of male attention. As she sat down across from him, he couldn't help but notice how easy she made everything feel. Thanks for meeting me, Bob. I know work keeps you busy, so I appreciate you taking the time, she said, studying his face. No problem, Vicky, Bob replied. Though, I have to say, I feel a little weird meeting without Sharon. I don't usually have lunch with pretty women who aren't my wife, but you said it was about her, so I'm all ears. Planning a surprise for her birthday next month? Bob wasn't expecting the sadness that crossed Vicky's face when he mentioned Sharon's birthday. What was going on? Bob, I've seen how much you and Sharon care for each other, and that's why I'm coming to you. This might ruin my friendship with her, but if it saves your marriage, I'm okay with that. There's no easy way to say this, but Sharon's been seeing someone for the past 3 months. Bob was stunned. He thought it had to be a joke, and he told Vicky as much. I'm really sorry, Bob, but it's not a joke. About 2 months ago, after you took on this new project, Sharon was in a bad place at work, grumpy and quiet. After a few martinis, she opened up about feeling abandoned. She said she missed you and felt like you two were becoming just another middle-aged couple letting life pass you by. At that point, the waiter came by for Vicky's order. She asked for a Cobb salad and an iced tea with lemon. Bob, still trying to process what he had just heard, was reeling at the thought that Sharon would sneak around after 8 years together. He would have bet his life that Sharon would have told him if she was unhappy. They'd always been honest, even when it was uncomfortable. He looked at Vicky and asked the one question he needed to know the answer to immediately. Has she slept with him? He whispered. Not that I know of, Vicky replied. And I think I'd be able to tell. Your wife's usually pretty open, which is why this behavior is so shocking. But Bob, you should know that every woman I've spoken to has shared similar feelings, kind of like how you guys talk about being tied down. When Sharon mentioned it, we all told her she's amazing, that you should pay more attention to her, and so on. Unfortunately, my sister was there that night, Vicky continued. What does your sister have to do with anything? Bob asked, trying to control his anger. Well, my sister is not the best influence, Vicky said. The waiter, bringing her tea, raised an eyebrow at her comment. Vicky took a sip and explained, "My parents were serial cheaters. I don't know who started it, but they were always trying to get back at each other. When I was 17, I asked why they stayed together, and they said it was because they loved each other. This affected my sister and me differently. I saw cheating as a relationship butcher, while my sister thought it was fine as long as you loved each other. I love her, but she's clueless about this stuff." Anyway, Vicky continued, my sister made a comment that if Sharon wasn't getting romance at home, maybe she should look elsewhere. I told her she was wrong, but a few others in the group started talking about how to pick up a guy and keep it secret. At the time, Sharon said she'd never cheat on you, but I think my sister planted a seed. Why do you think that? Bob asked. Now that he wasn't sure Sharon had slept with someone, he was processing more. Because the next week, Luke Jonas and his group showed up at the Red Horse Saloon where we were drinking. Sharon didn't invite him, but she did tell him we'd be there trying line dancing. It was fun, except for Luke. Now Bob had a name. Knowledge is power. Tell me about this Luke guy, Bob growled. Vicky smiled slightly at the tone in Bob's voice. She continued, Luke Jonas is the office flirt. He goes after any woman who shows even the slightest interest, and those who do find themselves on the receiving end of his attention. He doesn't care if they're married or even particularly attractive. He just loves the chase. Your wife shut him down early on, and he didn't push it until recently. Now he's chasing her, and instead of stopping it, she's running along with it. It's an open secret that if Luke gets one more maltreatment complaint, he'll be fired. She could easily end it, but she hasn't. In fact, for the past couple of months, they've been regulars at the cafeteria, sitting together, whispering and giggling. I've tried talking to her about it, but she just gets defensive, insisting they're just friends and that Luke listens to her and understands her problems. I asked if she would act the same way if you were sitting across the table, and she actually blushed. Then she got angry and said something like, "You wouldn't even notice." After that, I decided to step back and keep an eye on things. They seemed to cool it off at work, and I thought it was over until 3 weeks ago. At this point, Vicky's lunch arrived, and she began eating, watching Bob for his reaction. Bob took a long sip of his lemonade, but it didn't register at all. He felt hollow inside, and his eyes wouldn't focus. How could Sharon think he wouldn't care about her flirting with another man? He had never been overly jealous because he loved and trusted his wife. But now he wondered if he had been that distant because of this work project. He had always thought the payoff would be worth it, but had he gone too far? He found himself wondering what had happened 3 weeks ago. Did he even want to know? They ate in silence for about 5 minutes while Bob tried to process everything she had said. He was angry, no doubt. There was no good reason for her to be so close to another man, but he could almost see her logic. Maybe if he had been more attentive, none of this would have happened. And other than not telling him about the flirting, she hadn't technically lied to him. Yes, there were lies of omission, but so far, it was something he could work past. He figured they could talk, and if she was honest and agreed to stop seeing Luke, they could move on. So far, it didn't seem like any lasting damage had been done, unless something had happened in the last 3 weeks. So, what happened 3 weeks ago? How bad is it? He asked, feeling like he was finally standing on more solid ground. He could handle this. Vicky looked at him sympathetically. This is where it gets tough, Bob. 3 weeks ago, we all went back to the Red Horse Saloon for line dancing. Luke and his guys showed up, and we were all having a good time. Sharon had been drinking more than usual. Luke kept buying her drinks, and she got pretty tipsy. I went to the bathroom with her, and when she came out of the stall, she was holding her underwear and put them in her purse. I asked her what she was doing, and she said she wanted to feel free. She was drunk, so I just brushed it off and helped her back to our table. I started rounding up Hannah and Gail to take Sharon back to my place so she wouldn't go home too drunk. But then I noticed Sharon and Luke on the dance floor, bumping and grinding. Line dancing was over, and the jukebox was playing. I saw her take her underwear out of her purse and put them in Luke's pocket as the song ended. Unfortunately, so did everyone else. The whole bar erupted with catcalls, and Luke was grinning like a Cheshire cat. Then he kissed her, almost a full-on kiss, and one of his friends was filming it on his phone. I wanted so badly for her to push him away, but she didn't. She went along with it. I'm so sorry, Bob. She stopped as she saw his reaction. Bob's jaw had literally dropped. He needed to get out of there. Excuse me for a second, bathroom, he muttered, standing up and walking away. Inside the bathroom, Bob locked the door and splashed water on his face. He gripped the sink tightly, trying to steady himself. He remembered that night. Sharon usually got home around 11:30, but that night it was closer to 2:30. Vicky had called earlier and said that Sharon was staying at her place because she'd had too much to drink and that they would call her a cab when she sobered up. It had happened before, and Bob had always been grateful that Vicky and the girls were responsible enough to avoid a DUI. He had never been upset about it. In fact, he had always thought getting a little drunk was part of the fun when going out with friends. He never imagined this. He also remembered what happened the night Sharon came home. He recalled being woken up by the warmth of Sharon's lips on his skin. It had caught him off guard, and before he knew it, they were fully involved in passionate sex. "Oh my God, honey, that was amazing," he had told her afterward. "I'm sorry it ended so quickly, but I'll make it up to you." She had giggled and continued, and the night became one of their best. But now those memories were tainted. Was she thinking about someone else during those moments? He splashed more water on his face, trying to rid himself of the thought. Damn, he thought. Was she thinking of him while we were having sex? He dried his face and returned to the table. He noticed the sympathetic look on Vicky's face, but didn't know how to respond. His sandwich remained untouched. "What else do I need to know, Vicky?" he asked, his voice emotionless. "Honestly, Bob, that's pretty much it. The last few girls' nights have been at Hannah's house with wine and lingerie parties. At work, Sharon's been acting cold toward Luke, even though he's still trying to get close to her. I thought it was over, but just yesterday I saw them talking. They got quiet when I came around the corner, so I don't know what's going on, but I'm done. I figured you should know, and maybe you can do something since she's not listening to her friends anymore." The waiter brought the check, and Bob grabbed it before Vicky could reach for it, pulling out his credit card. "I want to see them together in action and maybe put a stop to it," he said. "Sharon told me you guys are going to the Red Horse Saloon this week, so this Thursday when you all go, I'll show up and watch from a distance." He stopped mid-sentence when he saw the horrified look on Vicky's face. "What did I say wrong?" he asked, confused. "Bob, Hannah has a doctor's appointment early Friday morning, and Gail's flying to Florida to visit her brother. If Sharon's going out Thursday, it's not with us," Vicky said gently. She reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm really sorry, honey," she said softly. "I know it's pointless to ask if you're okay, but here's my home number. Call anytime if you need to talk to me or Ron." Her husband was a marriage counselor, so talking to him might be helpful. Bob nodded slowly. "Thank you for telling me, Vicky. I know it wasn't easy, but I think you're doing the right thing being a good friend. I don't know what's going to happen next, but at least now I know what's going on and I can take some action. Thanks again." With that, he stood up, signed the bill, and walked out. Wednesday. Today was a breakthrough on the project Bob had been working on. They had secured pre-manufactured parts from a startup in Harrisburg, shaving 2 months off the timeline, giving them at least a week's cushion even with logistical challenges. A couple more calls, and the project would be completed 2 months ahead of schedule, saving the military millions. The bonus would be as big as Bob had hoped, and having his name on the project would bring recognition. He should have felt as happy as could be. But instead, all he could think about was how much he dreaded going home and confronting what he had to. He had decided to investigate Sharon's potential affair himself. He couldn't access her work email, but figured they wouldn't be foolish enough to use that since it was monitored by HR. He logged into her Yahoo account but found nothing suspicious. She could have created another email, but he wouldn't know unless he checked the home computer. The problem was that Bob wasn't tech-savvy. The idea of setting up surveillance cameras or voice-activated microphones seemed cool in theory, but he already had a plan for confronting her. All he wanted was as much information as possible to figure out whether he should try to save or end his marriage. Sharon had already picked up their daughter, Casey, from his parents, and had talked him into picking up Chinese food for dinner. When he texted her asking what she wanted, her response was, "After 10 years together, 8 of those married, you should know what I like, babe." He couldn't resist poking a little. "I just wanted to make sure you're still happy with the way things are," he texted back. Her reply came quickly. "You're right. Get me an extra egg roll." If it weren't for the bombshell Vicky dropped yesterday, Bob would have been thrilled to get home an hour early and just spend time with his wife and daughter. But when he checked the clock, he reminded himself that before the project began, this time would have been considered 2 hours late. He also realized he hadn't been home early on a Friday in months. Add to that the exhaustion and stress he'd been feeling. and it wasn't hard to see why Sharon might have felt neglected. Still, that didn't give her the right to do what she was doing. Walking through the front door, he noticed Sharon reaching up for a wine bottle. He paused to admire her figure. At 31, she was in her prime. Her 5'7" frame had just the right amount of curves to be irresistible. Even through the bulky sweatpants she wore, he could see the outline of her toned figure. Her hair was tied back in a ponytail, and when she turned and flashed him that bright smile, he couldn't help but feel incredibly lucky. Then he remembered why he was upset. "I'm so glad you're home, babe. How's work?" she asked, walking over to kiss him on the lips. "Pretty good. We had a major breakthrough on some supplies, so we're likely finishing at least a month ahead of schedule. Look, I know I've been distant because of this project, and I hate that I can't share the details since it's classified. But I want you to know, you and Casey are the most important things in my life, and I'll do everything I can to protect us," he said, looking into her eyes. Did he just catch a glimpse of regret or guilt in her expression, or was he imagining things? He cursed his inability to read people better. Known as a straight shooter, he spoke plainly and expected others to do the same. His blunt approach sometimes came off as abrasive, but once people got to know him, they appreciated his honesty. It had worked for him for 34 years, but now he was starting to doubt his method. "Oh, honey," she said softly, "we both love you so much and understand. I just wish you could be more involved with the family, but I know this is temporary. It means so much to hear you say that, though." She smiled, and for a moment he thought he saw tears in her eyes. Was she really that good of an actress? "So what does finishing early mean for you?" she asked as she unpacked the food containers. "Well, first off, it means a nice bonus. I don't know the exact amount yet, but it's definitely not chump change. Plus, since this is our first government project, doing it so well should bring in more work for the company. My name being on the lead will get attention from headhunters in the government, and the bosses know this, so I should be able to negotiate some good perks, assuming everything goes smoothly." As he talked, he tried eating his sweet and sour pork with chopsticks, but gave up and grabbed a fork. "Haven't I mentioned all this before?" he asked, his mouth full. "Not that I remember, babe," she replied. "All I recall is you saying you had a big contract you couldn't talk about, but it'd be worth it." "Well, it seems I haven't really talked to you since then," he said, sounding a little sad. "But it looks like I'll have my husband back soon," she said with a bright smile. He looked at her, ready to fish for more information. "So, what bar are you and the girls hitting tomorrow night? Should I swing by after work to make sure everyone gets home safely?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light. "Oh, actually, we're going to the Red Horse Saloon for some line dancing. I think we'll be done before you're off work," she said, focusing on her orange chicken as she spoke. His heart sank a little more. At that moment, Casey finished her egg roll and asked him to read her a story. He cleaned off his plate, then scooped her up and carried her to the living room. For the next hour, he devoted himself to reading story after story until she was fast asleep. He heard snoring from the couch and saw Sharon curled up with a book in her lap. He gently picked up his daughter and took her upstairs to her room, tucking her in and fighting back tears as he thought about what was to come. He wanted Casey to remember the good nights with her parents, not the tough times ahead. Wiping away his tears, he returned downstairs, kissed Sharon gently on the lips, and pulled a blanket over her. Then, determined, he went looking for her phone. He found it plugged in on the nightstand. Swiping to unlock it, he quickly found what he was looking for. Scrolling back through her texts, he saw they began about 3 months ago. "Hey, pretty lady. It was fun seeing you girls out dancing last night," one message read. "Same here. Bob works late on Thursdays, and my in-laws watch the kids so we can have some girl time," she had replied. "Your hubby is a good guy for letting you get out of the house now and then." "Yes, he is great," she responded. For the next few weeks, the texts between them seemed harmless enough. Then, this exchange happened. "Vicky gave me a lecture today about our lunch breaks. I was mad, but she had a point. I don't want people to get the wrong idea about us. It's just harmless talking. We're not doing anything wrong," he replied. She asked if Bob would be okay with how we're acting, and that got me thinking. Maybe we're sending the wrong signals. Plus, I shouldn't be sharing all my problems with another guy. "I'm going to try talking to Bob." "I get it. But if you can't get his attention, you know where to find me. I'll even buy you dinner if needed. Just as friends." Bob didn't remember Sharon trying to talk to him about anything, but it could have been around the time he found out they needed food-grade stainless steel for the project. He had spent days tracking down a supplier, and during that time you could have dropped a bomb on him without him noticing. So far, the text from Sharon seemed innocent, but it was clear to Bob that Luke was playing her. How could she not see it? He scrolled further to the next set of messages. "You need to return those today," said the man. She replied with a smiley face emoji. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I mean," he responded. "My friends are mad at me right now, and I don't blame them. If Bob finds out how I've been acting, he might leave me," she confessed. "So, you don't want me to show him the video?" he asked, including another smiley face emoji. "What video? You can't let anyone at work see that." "Sam was there, and he recorded it on his phone," she explained, worried. "I'll make sure he deletes it, but you'll owe me," he warned with another smiley face. "Fine. I can't lose Bob. Not after last night," she admitted. Curious, he asked, "What happened last night?" "That's none of your business," she snapped. "Was he mad you came home late and drunk?" "LOL," he teased. "Hell no. Let's just say last night was incredible, and it's because Bob and I love each other. Now give me my underwear back and make sure that video gets erased," she demanded. "Damn, that makes me sound so bad. Bob deserves better than me." He reassured her. "No, he's lucky to have you. He wasn't there to keep an eye on you. I don't need anyone watching me. Just be the friend you say you are and handle what I asked, please," she insisted. "Of course, I'll help you. Then you can buy me dinner," he replied with yet another smiley face. "Just make sure no one sees that video, and I'll do whatever you want," she reluctantly agreed. A few days later, the conversation resumed. "I heard girls' night was canceled. How about that dinner?" he texted, including a smiley face. "Not a good idea. Sorry," she replied. "Oh, come on. Your hubby will be at work and your friends are busy. One night out with a friend and we can talk like we used to. Besides, you owe me," he persisted, adding another smiley face. "Fine. I'll meet you at the Red Horse at 8, she agreed. "Nope," he corrected with a smiley face. "Meet me at the TGIF in the Sheraton Hotel. They have great drink specials and I don't want to yell over a bunch of drunks. I'll be getting a room in case we drink too much." "Fine," she conceded, "but this is just friends having dinner, and I do owe you for making sure that video didn't get out. It's bad enough people at work heard about it." "Don't worry about it. I watched Sam delete the video, and soon someone else will do something scandalous, and no one will remember." "See you at 8, he assured her. And there it was, the probable end of his marriage. How many times do you see your wife agree to meet another man at a hotel restaurant? How could this possibly end well? She couldn't think Zex wasn't on the table. Bob closed out the texts and plugged the phone back into the charger. He undressed and got into bed alone. Sleep didn't come easily. On Thursday, Sharon came downstairs wearing her little black dress, the one she always wore on their dates. She looked stunning. She stopped when she saw him sitting at the table. "Oh, Bob, I didn't expect you home this early," she said, her voice shaky. She looked pale. "We need to talk, Sharon," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "This is probably the most important conversation we'll ever have. Please sit down." She sat, fear spreading across her face. She reached for his hand as she usually would, but he pulled it away. "I know there's no girls' night. I know you've been seeing Luke Jonas behind my back," he started. "Bob, please, let me explain," she began, but he slammed his fist on the table, cutting her off. "Damn it, Sharon, listen to me," he yelled, making her flinch. "You don't get to talk until I'm done." She shrank back, tears filling her eyes. "As I was saying, I know you've been cozying up to Luke at lunch. I know you've been dancing with him at the Red Horse Saloon. I know you took off your underwear and gave them to him after some dirty dancing. I know the only reason you jumped me 3 weeks ago was because you were worked up over him. And I know you plan to go on a date with him tonight at a hotel where your boyfriend has a room ready." He paused, trying to control his anger. "Sharon, you lied to me by omission about Luke. You lied by omission about your dancing without underwear, and you lied about going out with the girls. Honestly, I'm tired, and my trust in you is broken. I'm not even sure I want to work on this marriage anymore. Your actions make me feel like you don't care about this relationship either. So, I'm giving you 3 choices." He held up one finger. "Choice 1, you walk out that door and go see your boyfriend. Even if nothing happens tonight, this will end our marriage. 0 chance I'll want to fix it." He raised a second finger. "Choice 2, you and I sit here all night, and you try to convince me to work on saving our marriage. You got a hard sell because I don't trust a word you say anymore, but you might be able to pull it off. I love you, and we have a child, so you've got about a 50% chance." Then he raised a third finger. "Choice 3, you take me to see your Romeo tonight. You tell him, in front of me, that he is never to contact or speak to you again. Then, you let me talk to him alone for at least 15 minutes. This choice will earn you the most respect and give us the best chance at fixing things. If you haven't slept with or done anything sexual with him, I promise I'll be 100% in to work on this. But if you have, this is the only option that might still give us a shot at repairing things." She looked like she might throw up, staring at him in horror. 0, 50, or 100%, Sharon? What's it going to be? The question hung in the air for almost a minute. She looked as if she was struggling to hold back the urge to vomit before finally meeting his gaze. "Bob, I'm so sorry for everything, and I really need to talk to you. But in answer to your question, do you want to drive or should I?" she asked, her voice small but steady. That was unexpected. He hadn't thought she would choose to confront Luke with him. He figured she'd try to stay and make excuses. This choice earned her some points, but she was still deep in the red. "I'll drive," Bob said shortly, grabbing his keys and following her out to the car. He opened the door for her out of habit, and she almost broke down again. As they pulled out of the driveway, she glanced over at him. "I really messed us up, didn't I?" she asked quietly. "Yes, Sharon, you really did," Bob replied, eyes focused on the road. "What can I do to fix it?" she asked, her voice trembling. He thought for a moment. "First, complete honesty from now on. I shouldn't have to say this, but apparently, you think it's okay to leave out important things or lie to me. You'll also have to find a way to make me believe you, because I don't know how you're going to earn my trust back, and I'm not the one who broke it." She nodded, biting her lip as tears welled in her eyes. "And another thing," Bob continued, "if we stay together, Luke is out of your life entirely. You don't talk to him at work. You don't ask how he's doing. If you see him at a bar, you leave. If you can't leave, you call me. No drinks, no gifts, nothing from him. He's gone." "Okay," she whispered. "When we get back, you're going to tell me everything, even the things you think I don't want to hear. I've been wrapped up in this project, and I'll take some blame for that. If you have issues with me, you need to tell me, but no more hiding." "Okay," she said, her voice barely audible. "And one more thing. For now, we're going to marriage counseling. You can pick the counselor if you want. Hell, maybe Ron can suggest someone. But it's not negotiable if we want any shot at making this work." "Okay," she repeated, nodding. Her phone beeped with a text message. She looked at it, and her face went pale again. "It's him. He's asking where I am," she said softly. Bob held out his hand for the phone. Wordlessly, she handed it over. He scrolled through the messages from earlier that day. "Hey, I got a room with a jacuzzi. Maybe after dinner we can relax. Bring your bikini." "You're not getting me drunk enough to go in a hot tub with you. I'm not bringing a bikini." "We'll see. You know how you get when you're drunk." The most recent message: "Where are you? I got a glass of wine waiting for you." Bob texted back, "Running a little late, I got a surprise for you." The response came quickly. "You brought your bikini? Awesome." Bob handed the phone back to Sharon. She read the messages and hung her head. "You know this isn't helping, right? Just from today's texts, it looks like you were planning to hook up with him tonight. How bad do you think it'll be if I scroll back further?" Bob asked, his voice calm but cutting. Sharon sobbed quietly. "Bob, I swear, I only planned to have dinner. I never planned to sleep with him." "Did you plan to give him your underwear like you did a few weeks ago when you were drunk and dancing with him?" he asked, his words like a knife. She paled even more. "Sharon, we're almost there. You should probably fix your makeup and think about what you're going to say to Luke," Bob advised. "Oh, and don't drink the wine." Sharon quickly pulled down the visor and grabbed a tissue from the glove box. She began fixing her makeup, sniffling as she tried to compose herself. In a more steady tone, she asked, "Bob, I get why you think Luke was playing me. Hearing it from you makes me realize he probably was. But how didn't I see it? I know I've made bad decisions lately, but I'm not some naive girl. I've brushed off better looking and more charming guys than Luke, so why did he get to me? That's part of why I find it hard to trust anything you say, Sharon. You're smart and beautiful. You should have recognized this for what it was. That's why I wonder if you went along with it willingly." "I messed up," she muttered. "I acted like a strumpet at a bar with him and lied about dinner tonight. No wonder you're angry and hurt." Her color seemed to return, and her voice grew stronger. "Okay, I screwed up, and now I need to figure out how to fix it. Thank you for giving me a chance." She leaned in to kiss him, but he turned his head, and her kiss landed on his cheek. "I'm far from over this, not even close," Bob said coldly. She looked at him, hurt. They were usually affectionate, and his rejection stung. "What do you want me to say to him?" she asked, her voice trembling as they pulled into the restaurant parking lot. Bob turned off the engine and looked at her, his anger bubbling up as he leaned in, staring at her with a cold intensity. "What do I want you to say, Sharon? Our relationship is hanging by a thread because of what you did with this loser. You've torn down a key part of our marriage. Our daughter could be spending Thanksgiving with you and Christmas with me. I want that to sink in. Then, say whatever you need to." Sharon sat in silence for a minute, taking deep breaths before she opened the car door. As they walked toward the Sheraton Hotel's TGI Fridays, she hesitated for a moment, almost reaching for his arm. Bob didn't pull away, but he didn't invite her touch either. They entered the restaurant together in silence. Inside, a young hostess with auburn hair greeted them. "Welcome to TGI Fridays, just the two of you?" Sharon answered before Bob could. "Actually, we're meeting someone. He's already seated." "Feel free to look around," the hostess replied. Sharon nudged Bob's arm, gesturing toward the back. Bob followed her lead, his eyes narrowing as they spotted Luke in a corner near the door leading to the hotel lobby. Luke was fiddling with his phone, unaware they were approaching. Sharon walked ahead, stopping at Luke's table without sitting down. Luke looked up and grinned, but the smile faded quickly when he saw Bob behind her. His expression tightened and his eyes narrowed in suspicion. "Luke," Sharon began, her voice shaking slightly, "this is my husband, Robert Morgan. He has concerns about our relationship, and after talking to him, I agree. For the first time in our marriage, I've given him a reason to doubt me, and I'm going to work to fix what I've damaged. From now on, I want nothing to do with you. Don't call, text, or try to contact me in any way. I take responsibility for letting things go this far, but I'm ending it here." Luke sat silently, his face tight as Sharon continued. "My husband knows about what happened at the Red Horse Saloon, and tomorrow, I'm reporting this to HR. Any attempt to contact me outside of work will be considered maltreatment. Now, I'm going to sit at the bar while my husband talks to you." Before Bob could respond, Sharon leaned in and gave him a firm kiss on the lips, her eyes pleading as she whispered, "I'm so sorry." She then turned and walked toward the bar. Bob couldn't help but admire her resolve, though his feelings remained conflicted. Bob sat down across from Luke, who shifted uncomfortably, trying to keep his cool. Bob could see the nervousness underneath. "So," Bob began in a calm, low voice, "you were expecting a nice dinner with my wife. Maybe something extra afterward, huh?" His cold stare locked onto Luke's eyes. Luke leaned back, attempting a smirk. "I guess she didn't tell you everything," he said, trying to regain control. Bob smiled faintly, unshaken. "She told me enough. And you thought tonight's surprise would be her in a bikini, right?" Luke's smirk faltered briefly. He quickly tried to recover. "You really think she's told you everything, man?" he asked, trying to sound confident. Bob didn't flinch. "Yeah, I do. I've known her for 10 years and been married for 8. I know her a lot better than some lowlife who's been sniffing around for a few months." Luke chuckled, trying to provoke him. "She gives a hell of a head," he sneered, smirking again. Bob's expression remained calm. He leaned in slightly, his voice steady and dangerous. "You want to show me proof? If you had anything real, you wouldn't have needed to spike her drink." Luke's smirk vanished completely. He shifted in his seat, his eyes darting to the glass of wine on the table, the one he had ordered for Sharon. Bob noticed and kept pressing. "Yeah, I saw that," Bob continued. "What was the plan? GHB? Rohypnol? Or just some good old magic pills?" Luke's face turned pale as he leaned back, clearly shaken. Bob had hit a nerve. "You little piece of trash!" Bob hissed, leaning in closer. "I should knock you to a pulp right now, but I'm not sure I wouldn't eliminate you, and I have better things to do than go to jail for someone like you." Luke stayed silent, his confidence completely shattered. "I'm giving you 3 options," Bob said, raising one finger. "Option 1, you apologize to my wife. Quit your job tomorrow and leave town. Do that, and I won't come after you." He raised another finger. "Option 2, you walk into the police station and confess to pilling my wife's drink. Do your time, and when you get out, leave town. I'll keep an eye on you, but I won't come after you." He raised a third finger. "Option 3, we meet in a boxing ring in 4 weeks, sign injury waivers, and neither of us leaves until one of us is unconscious. Then you leave town." Luke blinked, his eyes widening. "You're insane," he spat, regaining a bit of his swagger. "Why would I agree to any of that?" Bob leaned back, taking a long sip from the scotch he had just ordered. Because every time you step outside at night, go to your car, or open your door, you'll wonder if I'm there, waiting. And when I'm not, you'll wonder if one of my friends is. You'll never know when it's coming, but trust me, it will. Knees, bats. You get the idea. Luke shifted uncomfortably, the smugness draining from his face. You wouldn't do that, he muttered, trying to regain his nerve. You're just a teddy bear. Your wife said so after I screwed her. Bob's calm demeanor vanished. He reached across the table, grabbed Luke by the collar, and pulled him forward to make his point clear. It wasn't aggressive, but it was enough to get his attention. You son of a witch! Luke shrieked, clutching his nose. I'm calling the cops! Go ahead, Bob growled. I'd love for them to test that wine glass for pills and hear the recording I've got of you admitting your plan. Luke's face turned ashen. Within minutes, the police were involved. 2 state troopers, who had been eating across the street, came in to investigate. Bob gave his statement, and they bagged the wine glass for evidence. A search of Luke's pockets turned up a small packet of white powder. When confronted, Luke asked for a lawyer and shut up. It was nearly 4 a.m. by the time Bob and Sharon left the police station. After giving her statement, Sharon spent 15 minutes listening to one of the officers explain how lucky she was that Bob had intervened. By the time they left, she was a wreck. Luke remained in custody. Using Sharon's phone, they called Bob's parents, briefly explaining the situation. His parents were understanding and promised to take care of Casey for the day, planning a trip to the zoo to keep her entertained. When they finally pulled into the garage, both Bob and Sharon sat quietly for a moment. Sharon unbuckled her seatbelt and leaned over the console, hugging Bob tightly. He let her cry into his shoulder for a moment, before gently pushing her back. Sharon, he said softly, we still need to talk, but it's late, and we need some sleep. Tomorrow, we'll call into work and figure out where we go from here. Sound like a plan? She nodded quickly, wiping her tears. Yes, Bob, bed sounds wonderful. Her voice cracked as she asked, Can I please sleep in the bed with you? Bob looked at her and sighed. Of course, baby. I woke up the next morning, spooned up next to my wife. As I thought about everything that had happened, I started to feel like maybe we could be okay. But there were still some tough conversations ahead before I could commit to anything. We went out for breakfast at IHOP and chatted about Casey and the fun she was likely having with my parents. We kept things light and easy. After a final cup of coffee, we paid the bill and headed home. Sitting down at the kitchen table, I looked at her and decided to get things started. Okay, I'll go first, I said. I think you can see what kind of person Luke is now, so I'm not going to knock that dead horse. But he said you gave him a good head and that you called me a teddy bear after sleeping with him. Is any of that true? No, she replied quickly. The worst thing I did with him was that night at the Red Horse. I know what I did was terrible, but nothing else happened beyond that. How can I trust you on that? You lied about seeing him last night. You left out what happened at the bar and you hid your relationship with him, I said, feeling the need to lay all the cards on the table. I've been thinking about how to earn back your trust, and I have an idea. What about a polygraph test? She suggested. Polygraph test? I had to smile a little. You mean a lie detector test? She nodded. Make an appointment and ask me whatever you need to. Just tell me the time and place, she said with such sincerity, it almost made me smile. I knew lie detector tests weren't 100% reliable, but I would feel better if she passed. I'll see what I can do. It might take some time to set up, but that's actually a good idea, I replied, impressed she had thought of it. She smiled slightly. Okay, that's a good start, and we can revisit the details of your affair later. But here's the big question, the one that hurts the most and affects our relationship the most. How do we move forward? I get that you were ashamed and didn't tell me about the panty incident. I don't like it, but I can understand it. It's harder for me to accept how close you got with another guy without telling me. But if you thought it was just a work friendship, I can see that too. What I can't understand and what breaks my heart is when you told me you were going out with the girls but were actually meeting him for dinner. That was a 100% lie. Forget the consequences. You broke my heart when you lied to me. I know, she said, her eyes filling with tears. I could feel the weight of what she was saying. Bob, all I can do is explain where my head was at the time. First, I want to say I'm deeply sorry for lying to you about everything. When you took on this project, for the first time in our relationship, I felt like I was second place. I'm not blaming you or your work. I understand why you took it and why it mattered to you. I'm just telling you how I felt. I started feeling down, and then Vicky's sister made a comment that I couldn't shake. She said to find romance somewhere else. I didn't take it as a suggestion to cheat, but I interpreted it as permission to seek what I was missing elsewhere while you were focused on work. Then came Luke, she continued. Without realizing it, he started filling that gap. He asked about my day, about our kid, about things I liked. Our conversations were about me, and it made me feel special. She paused, studying my face, but I didn't react. When Vicky called me out on how it looked at lunch, I realized what I had been doing. I was using Luke to get what I wasn't getting from you, so I cooled things off. At the time, I thought he was just being a friend, but I was trying to fix things with you. She paused again. That night, things got out of hand. I didn't invite him or his friends. I showed up early, and they arrived before the other girls. Luke bought drinks for everyone, including me. I ended up getting drunk, drunker than I've been in years. I did some really stupid and shameful things, which you already know about, but afterward we had amazing sex, and that confused me even more. How could I act like a mess and still have such a great night with you? She got up, grabbed a glass of water, drank half of it, then sat back down. After that, it was all about damage control. I knew you'd be furious if you found out what I'd done, and you'd have every right to be. If you had kissed another woman at a bar while drunk, I'd be livid. It didn't help that we had such a great night afterward. You'd probably wonder if I was thinking of someone else. So I made another mistake. I tried to use Luke to cover it up, and he made sure I knew he was helping. Then, I owed him a favor, and he wanted to take me out to dinner on a night when my usual friends couldn't make it. I was still lonely, and I didn't think you'd be home until late. So in a moment of stupidity, I messed up again. I'm so sorry. Our marriage has always been built on trust, and I broke that trust. Tears were streaming down her face, though she wasn't sobbing. Oh, hell, I muttered, standing up to give her a hug. I kissed her deeply, then pulled back. We're not there yet. This is going to take some time, but if you're 100% in, so am I. Sharon and I went to counseling for a while, which really helped me work through my issues. The biggest thing I learned was that just because communication was great when we first got together, didn't mean we didn't need to keep working on it. The counselor also suggested Sharon get checked for a hormonal imbalance. 31 is a bit young for that, but it's not unheard of. After a few tests and a change in her birth control, she felt a lot better. I can't say we're back to where we were, but we're back to a good place. The polygraph test showed she was telling the truth about the tough questions I asked. I still have a little voice in the back of my mind about the accuracy of those tests, but I can live with that. I also signed up for boxing lessons. Sharon got into self-defense classes at the same gym, and Thursday Girls Bar Night turned into Thursday Girls Self-Defense Night. Sharon eventually signed us up for martial arts classes together. She's a natural, and I'm just trying to keep up. Sparring has become some of the best foreplay we've had. My project finished 6 weeks ahead of schedule and under budget. The company's now competing with the big players for government contracts. They tried to promote me to vice president, but it required too much travel, so I turned it down. Instead, I started a special projects division, which came with a new office and an executive assistant. My new executive assistant has the best smile and an amazing backside. So far, no one's complained about me working with my wife. As long as we're making money, I don't think anyone will. Most of my $38,000 bonus from that project went into Casey's college fund, but I kept some aside for a week at an all-inclusive resort with Sharon. By the time we got back, my parents were more than ready to hand our daughter back to us. I did get a misdemeanor attack charge for punching Luke. Best $300 and 40 hours of community service I've ever spent. Luke got 3 to 5 years for attempted attack and pill possession. The white powder was GHB. He also got the crap knocking out of him one night walking to his car. No, it wasn't me. Apparently, Luke had pulled this pilling stunt before, and one of his sufferer's brothers caught up with him. That guy got 2 to 3 years for felony attack. I put $50 a month into his commissary account. Sharon and I worked hard on rebuilding the trust that was damaged. And while it hasn't been easy, we've made significant progress. Our relationship now is stronger because we're both committed to making it work, openly communicating, and ensuring that no gap grows between us again. Therapy has become a regular part of our lives, and we've found a new rhythm that works for both of us. I can't say the fear is completely gone, but I've learned to trust again. Life isn't perfect, but it feels more genuine, more grounded. We both know that maintaining a relationship takes effort, and now we're giving it the attention it deserves. I wake up every morning next to the woman I love, knowing that we've both made mistakes, but also knowing that we're choosing each other every day. That, more than anything else, gives me hope for the future. At the end of the day, sometimes love is messy, but it's the fight to stay together that proves its strength.